The Tudor Conquest of Ireland. As early as the 12th century, the Anglo-Normans from England invaded Ireland and seized huge portions of land, but they were met with fierce resistance from local Gaelic chieftains who tried for centuries to expel the English out of Ireland and reclaim their indigenous homeland. What we will look at today is the Tudor Conquest of Ireland, in which Irish chieftains, of course Catholic, made an alliance with Spain to try to oust the English from their lands and were ultimately crushed at the Battle of Kinsale, leading to the development and intensification of the Plantation of Ulster, in which Scotch-Irish settlers were brought to make Ireland less Irish. During the medieval era, the English were never able to control the entirety of Ireland. Outside of their small land holdings, there existed a wild, ancient Gaelic Ireland that was rebellious in nature and sought to push out the English. And these two Irelands existed simultaneously next to each other, of course, with unease. Before the rise of the Protestant Reformation, in Ireland, there existed English culture and Irish culture, but both were unified essentially by the Catholic Church. The Irish rejected English customs, the English rejected Irish customs, but one thing that they could all come to agreement on was Catholicism. And this, of course, will change when Tudor King Henry VIII broke with the Catholic Church and ended up creating his own Church of England with his Act of Supremacy. So in England, now English loyal subjects were expected to become loosely Protestant and adhere to the Church of England, whereas in Ireland, many Anglo-Norman lords and indigenous Irish stayed Catholic and rejected King Henry VIII's new church, which would serve as a security issue as you now have Ireland religiously allied with that of France and Spain and Portugal. In order to deal with a security threat in Ireland, the English decided to try to Anglicize the Irish, or to make the Irish English. And what they did was they created the policy of surrender and regrant, in which these Gaelic chieftains and clans would go before the English government or English lord, surrender their lands, and then have them regranted to them with protections by the English king and an English-backed title. And this allowed them to have authority in the English world now, as well as authority in the Gaelic world. The English hoped to make these Irish chieftains loyal subjects who would back the English crown over the Spanish, French, or even independent. The policy of surrender and regrant was semi-successful in that it gave more political and legal control over the Irish for the English. But it also caused some instability. For in English law, one person was the inheritor and sole proprietor of clan lands, whereas in the Brehon ancient Irish laws, families had ancestral and communal land claims, and this led to some civil strife, such as what happened with the O'Neill clan. There was also cultural backlash against this, particularly with the Irish bards, those folks who were the keepers of songs, tales, and genealogies, who said to remain distinctly and defiantly Irish and to reject all forms of English law and culture. Due to the defiant and perseverant nature of Irish Gaelic culture, the English turned to a new policy of plantation to prevent Irish rebellions. Parliament passed laws known as Bills of Attainder, in which specific Irish rebels were named and had their land seized and then turned into plantations, where the English government would then divide it into acreages and invite settlers from the Scottish lowlands in order to settle and habitate these lands in order to make Ireland less Irish. And why they chose these lowland Scots is the fact that they were intensely Calvinist, that they were militarily anti-Catholic and would never ever integrate into Catholic Ireland. So this bicultural Ireland that existed in a state of unease is going to be the setting for the 9 Years' War, in which in 1593, Northern Irish Gaelic lords combined with Catholic clerics sought help from Catholic friends in continental Europe, largely that of Philip II of Spain. And if we remember, Philip II of Spain had launched a massive invasion fleet known as the Spanish Armada that was defeated by Queen Elizabeth. And now the Irish were looking to use the Spanish Catholics as a way to liberate Ireland from the Tudor control and Protestant control of Queen Elizabeth. Now this Irish rebellion, allied with Catholic Spain, was led in large part by Hugh O'Neill and the O'Neill tribe. For the O'Neill tribe was very much feared by the English, for they were fierce fighters and had large numbers. And Hugh O'Neill, who later became the leader of the tribe, spent much of his life in the English court, speaking English and fighting in Queen Elizabeth's wars, in which he learned how to train pikemen, how to use musketeers, and even heavy artillery. But he never renounced or gave up his Irish heritage or identity. So when this rebellion broke out, he was initially a fence sitter, but then threw his lot in with the Gaelic Irish. And when he did, he won some significant battles, such as that of the Yellow Ford, and these rebels made a series of demands in which they desired autonomy for Ireland, but interestingly under the English crown, and they also desired Catholic rule over Ireland and rejected the Church of England, which was unacceptable to Tudor England. And Tudor England said that these folks needed to be crushed, that they could not be reasoned with. And they will be crushed at the Battle of Kinsale, where these rebels at Kinsale, which is a coastal fort, were put down by the English before Spanish assistance even showed up. By the time the Spaniards showed up, the battle was already over, and the Tudors had crushed the last substantial Irish resistance until the modern era. After this failed rebellion to expel the English and unite a Catholic Ireland, what we get is known as the Flight of the Earls, in which the Irish leaders of this rebellion ended up leaving Ireland and making their way to Rome, where the Pope gave them refuge and a pension where they could live like gentlemen to the end of their days, where it's believed they spent the rest of their lives plotting the liberation of Ireland. In Ireland, the rebellious Ulster Clan became now an English plantation, and you had a massed wave of Calvinist settlers from the Scottish lowlands that came to make Ireland less Irish. And you would have a new era of English domination that began with the fall of the Earls at Kinsale. And we'll look in future videos at how Cromwell and Protestantism will continue to impact Ireland and Irish culture. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Give a like and a subscribe, and have a wonderful day.